I'd agreed to it, the baby, because I'd decided that was what was owed. That if your wife, who you loved beyond measure, wanted a child, you were supposed to think it was a fine and perfect plan. While we were still trying, Alice was all the time asking me if I was sure, if I was still okay with it. Yes, I told her yes, which was not quite a lie. I could easily enough see us having a child, or children. I imagined we'd keep them fed and watered, that we'd find ways not to kill them or ourselves. This is my second novel. It is a novel that essentially came out of a fight my wife and I had for years and years. My wife is Tita Ramirez, who also teaches here, about her belief that we should have children and my belief that that seemed completely terrifying. The title of the book is Kids These Days. I just wasn't ready. I didn't feel enough like a grown-up to be responsible for somebody else, to be responsible for somebody else's life. And two, I was selfish. I really liked getting to sleep late. And I really liked the life that we had put together for ourselves. But I think in the back of my head, I knew she was right. I knew, even as I was fighting as hard as I could not to have kids, I knew I wanted a 12-year-old. And I just sort of wanted that 12-year-old somewhere out in the future, maybe even 12 years out in the future. And so I think part of her frustration with me during that time was that even though I knew she was right, that we would eventually have a family, that I was just holding out. 2 or 3 more nurses came in and did 2 or 3 more things to Alice before they walked us down the hall to the ultrasound room. The tech in there got her up on the table, rubbed her down with the jelly, held the magic wand up to her belly, and without much warning at all, there it was. The windshield wipered image up on the screen, black and white, grainy, a channel you couldn't quite tune in. Still, it was pretty clear it was a human baby in there. Pretty clear even which end was head and which was tail. Our child, on the damn television set at North Florida Fertility. That plus the underwater mouth sound of the heartbeat. Alice reached for my hand. She was crying. I was too. It was impossible not to. I'd always cried at significant moments, at public ceremonies. I cried when they played the national anthem before graduations and ball games. I cried when other people got married, even in the movies. I cried at long-distance telephone carrier commercials, back when there were long-distance telephone carrier commercials. And now I was crying because there was another life up there in that picture, and that was more than I could process, more than I figured anybody could process, really, when or if they tried to work it through. I always write towards what I'm afraid of, because that's what's on my mind, that's what's keeping me up at night, that's what's getting me up the next morning. But I think it would probably be too much an exercise in self-pity or self-flagellation if it was just my release, just about my fear of having a kid. And everybody would stand out back and say, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And it is, in fact, they were right, it is the best thing that ever happened to me. It's the best decision I ever made outside from marrying Tita. But it is also so hard. Every day I want to pull these children to me and hug them, and almost every day I want to pull them to me and shake them a little bit. And I wish we would be a little bit more honest about the difficulty of child rearing, or that there was more space to stand around in the backyard and say, oh, I love them so much, and I kind of want to kill them a little bit. But I did not suddenly feel like a father. I did not have some vestigial urge to run out and stab a gazelle in the throat and drag it back to our hut for dinner. Instead, I felt what I've been feeling all along since we'd started talking about it, started trying, that I was powerfully, deeply alone, that the rest of the world of ultrasound technicians and locksmiths and mortgage bankers still writing mortgages and center fielders holding their babies in their arms during post-game interviews, all those people knew exactly how to do this, did not flinch in the onrushing face of certain peril. They'd simply come wired with something I hadn't. They knew they were supposed to have children, did it without batting an eye. It was what came next. You survived your 20s, you found someone who felt like she could live under the same ceilings as you did without needing to kill you, and you had a kid. Then you had another. Everyone did it. Everyone. I think it's about learning to be comfortable in your own skin, but also understanding that you cannot live a completely selfish life. As hard as I tried to, it turns out that if you're going to be in a relationship with someone, that your universe, the Venn diagram of your universe, now officially overlaps with that other person's universe. And then if you take the further step of getting married, you're building a universe with that person. The further step of having children, you're building yet another universe. And this is not to say, by the way, that having kids is some kind of mandatory stair step to growing up. For Walter in the book it was, though. It became the kind of talisman that was there in front of him, the sort of the thing he could, eventually he discovers it's the thing he can reach for. It's the thing that can make him a more complete person. So yeah, I think I think it is in ways about Walter coming to recognize how he can be a better version of himself. I've never been more delighted, and this actually appears in the dedication page at the end. The note to Tita says, "To all those beasts beneath our roof, I've never been more delighted to be so, so wrong."